grateful. Thank you. Leanne is stepping in today for Kevin, so we're grateful to you. Thank you. All right. Hello, folks. How are you this morning? Trying to still figure out my glasses situation. Yes. My name is Tess Lotta. My pronouns are she, her. I am very grateful to serve as worship associate today and for the always enriching experience of working with Reverend Chloë. May you find our collaboration on service today meaningful. Before we enter into worship together, I would like to take a few moments for a few kind asks, as well as share some information. I kindly ask if you take a moment to silence your phones and to encourage meaningful worship engagement for all. We thank you for your consideration in limiting phone usage during the service. We also appreciate your thoughtful attention of the wearing of masks. In the spirit of community, we invite you to enjoy coffee and conversation after services here in our pavilion and in our virtual coffee hour on Zoom. Greetings to all of our Zoom folks today. We offer many opportunities to be part of and get to know our Emerson community. Today at 12:30, right, we have Puzzles and Pasta, I believe. Today at 12:30, join the fun at Puzzles and Pasta, a fundraising event hosted by our own Tracy Watson. Interested in exploring meditation? Every Thursday at 6 p.m., Reverend Chloë hosts the Deep Breaths meditation group here in the sanctuary and on Zoom. You can find the Zoom link on our website. Newcomers, this is a great place to learn a little Dharma and to learn some meditation and experience meditators as well. Be in the know. Mark your calendars for next Sunday, February 23rd at 12:30 for the Emerson Congregational Meeting here in the sanctuary and on Zoom 1.
It's in service.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. 10:30. All right. We're going to be doing it as in service. We talked about that, which I'm excited to see how that's going to roll. So 10:30. Roll that back, 10:30, congregational meeting here in the sanctuary or on Zoom 1. And as a reminder, in last month's e-blast, House shared that a group of Emersonians will be coming together to volunteer in response to the fires. We have opportunities for all, especially focused on supporting affected UUs at troop and neighborhood UU churches out in the Pasadena area, and expect the need to grow in the coming months as the immediate response fades. If you'd like to participate or just be kept in the loop, you can email House at house, literally how it's spelled, house@emersonyuuc.org if you want to jump in on that. And for more information on these and our activities, see the printed order of service, and as well as you can sign up for our weekly e-blast newsletter. You can sign our guest book in the foyer, our virtual guest book in Zoom, and you can check our website all the time. We're constantly updating it, emersonyuuc.org. And finally, follow our social media hubs on Facebook and Instagram. The URLs are in a little sign in the pavilion. As we open our hearts in reflection today, may we lift up the first people of the ancestral and unceded territory of the affiliated tribes of the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Gabrieliano, and Chumash that is now occupied by our church. We become allies when we honor their elders and descendants by educating ourselves about the citizens that descend from the original native peoples of this region. The history of California is inundated with the myths and propaganda used to promote a story sympathetic to the colonizers. However, when we do not turn away but turn towards an understanding of the true history and cruel policies of settler colonialism, we discover that there has always been resistance by indigenous people, the stories of which are often untold. This legacy carries to the present moment and centered as museums, events, and indigenous resistance movements reclaim the rich culture of the original native people of Los Angeles and neighboring regions. Did you know that Indigenous Pride Los Angeles is the only pride organization that celebrates Two-Spirit, Indigiqueer, and Indigenous LGBTQPAI+ folks, culture, identities, and heritage? Their website is awesome. It offers a tremendous amount of resources, which with allies can learn about key issues, such as the importance of the Indian Child Welfare Act. You can find them at indigenouspridela.org.
Thank you, Tess. Good morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Chloë Briedé. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm happy to be with you all this morning. Happy Valentine's Day. Yeah, good. That's why we're celebrating, that's why we're celebrating love today. So you'll see my stole. We're going to do some love exercises, things like that. The UU Christian Fellowship has a t-shirt that reads, "Love the hell out of the world." Love the hell out of the world. What does it mean to love the hell out of the world? John Pavlovich says this about love. Love is terribly offensive to those who would wish it silenced. Love doesn't tolerate discrimination. It doesn't abide bigotry. It doesn't play nice with fear. It doesn't wait in the corner for hatred to consent to its speaking. Love doesn't sit quietly while people are dying for fear of being deemed impolite. Love is inappropriate and undignified and loud. Love isn't a mousy wallflower. It isn't a pushover. It won't be managed or tone policed or shamed in holding its tongue. Love is the ferocious eruption of the heart in the face of all that feels wrong and broken and deadly. The same loves that embrace the hurting fight back the hurters. It will be at once a comfort to one and an irritation to another. These are days when we are called to love and to risk all that love asks us to risk, to give all that love requires us to give. Love is still the greatest weapon good people have. Love doesn't just love, it also pushes back hard against unloving things. Plan A is love. There is no plan B. Perhaps that's what it means to love the hell out of the world. Come, let us worship this morning, loving the hell out of the world. And Tess is going to help me light our chalice this morning.
Buddhist Lama Rod Owens reminds us that goodness isn't a show for others to influence how they think about us. To choose goodness, he continues, is to choose freedom, first for ourselves, then for our communities. As with the symbol of this chalice and flame, we ignite together the light of reason, the warmth of community, the work of freedom, and the flame of hope. Please join me in the reciting of our covenant in English and in Spanish. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. We dwell together in peace to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship. Thus do we covenant. La doctrina de esta iglesia es amor, es búsqueda de la verdad en su sacramento, y el servicio es su oración, vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad, servir a la unidad en comunión. Este es nuestro pacto. Number 18 would be this one. This one. Yeah. All right, I invite you to rise in body or spirit, whatever you're comfortable with, to join together to sing number 18, What Wondrous Love.
To love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end I will sing. You may be seated. Thank you, everyone. Our usual musician, Kevin, is taking some much-needed sick leave, and you'll excuse me trying to lead singing, so I apologize.
Beautiful. I don't know a lot of the hymns, so I'm like taking my cue from Reverend Chloe. So thank you so much. All right, well, we know me. I'm Tess, and I welcome, a heartfelt welcome to everyone here in our sanctuary and on Zoom, in our Zoom sanctuary. If you're new to Emerson, we're glad you're here. We are a community centered on love, encouraging self-expression and inquiry. Our shared values of pluralism, generosity, interdependence, equity, justice, and transformation express our commitment to build an inclusive community. Folks from all backgrounds and experiences are welcome here. We embrace the dignity and the worth inherent in each individual. Whatever your life circumstances that brought you here, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. However you choose to express your spiritual influences or secular practices, we welcome you. Today we explore love, the centering call to action of our shared values. The quote from UU Minister Joanna Fontaine Crawford on the order of service offers in plain terms both a hopeful outcome and a desire and a design by which to express this shared value. For me, she is proposing a methodology, a way to apply love, whether it is in passionate swoops or the detailed preparation of ongoing resistance, such as the Environmental Justice Intersections webinar coming up that's sponsored by our own Environmental Justice Ministry. You can find that info on the order of service. So this methodology, passionate swoops or detailed preparation of organizing resistance. Methodology, a way into love, translates into action our determination to engage with suffering. Reverend Crawford takes her cue directly from Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolent resistance as expressed in his many speeches and his Love in Action sermons. This clarion call provides very clear instruction about what action is needed, the consistent and incremental application of extravagant love has the power to combat the hell of suffering. In a moment, I'll invite you to greet your neighbors. During that time, please feel welcome to write in our physical and virtual Book of Lives any joy, concern, occasion, or thoughts you'd like share aloud with the congregation during the service. For folks here in person, the Book of Life is located right there behind the piano. And for folks on Zoom, you will find it linked in for the virtual Book of Life. Now let us take a moment to greet our neighbors in the spirit of welcome and worship. Mine is here. Okay, cool. Come up when you're done.
Typically in our service, we have a time that's geared towards any children or, those of us who are children in our hearts. And so this is that time. And today we're talking about love in our service, as you've noticed. And one practice of love that's fairly well known is a Buddhist practice called metta meditation. And some of what I'm going to be talking about comes from Lion's Roar magazine. So if you want to read more, it's a nice Buddhist magazine that talks about a lot of this. And so metta meditation is loving kindness meditation. It's a Buddhist practice for cultivating compassion for ourselves and others through the repetition of loving or friendly phrases and wishes of goodwill. The word metta is from Pali, which is an ancient Indian language, Indian subcontinent language. And it often is translated to loving kindness, but it could also be translated to universal goodwill, or even loving friendliness. And the practice originates historically from the Buddha's early discussions of immeasurable friendliness. The Metta Sutra is what it's called. So what does metta meditation do? It invites the person who's doing it into a more loving state of mind, a more connected state of mind. And this loving kindness practice can be practiced anywhere at any time. So you could be sitting here in church. You could be sitting on a meditation pillow in a meditation hall. You could be driving on the 405 or the 101, whichever is your, where you've ended up that day. Or you could even just be walking down the street or sitting on the bus. All of that you can do metta while doing any of that. And I would say, even driving, you could meditate a little bit if you're in a sort of mindfulness state. Through metta, we become more honest and loving towards ourselves and the world around us. And in metta meditation, we wish happiness, safety, and ease towards ourselves and others. In the most common version of this practice, we offer those feelings through the use of simple phrases, first to ourselves, and then in succession to someone we love, and then someone we're indifferent towards, and then someone we consider a difficult person. And finally, to all beings everywhere and to the universe even, sometimes. And it helps us work through different feelings sometimes in doing that. And it can be hard, especially if you're trying to send love to someone that you disagree with, or you've had conflict with, or a negative relationship. So some examples of the phrases you might hear used would be, may I be safe, healthy, and happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be peaceful and filled with joy. Those are some of the phrases people use. At first, some people might find the practice of metta a little mushy or sort of emotional and sentimental and struggle to feel a connection to it. And that's understandable. And others may struggle to find a direct, loving feeling towards someone they consider a difficult person. And I think Tess is going to talk about that a little later. The practice of metta can be compared, I've heard a lot of times, to lifting weights. So when you're doing metta meditation, if you're lifting something that's really light, you're probably not getting any benefit from it. But if you're lifting something that's super heavy, you might hurt yourself. So you sort of want to go for that in-between space of, this might be pushing me a little bit, but it's not going to leave me permanently injured. So it's sort of like, lifting weights. Maybe instead of starting with that person who really, really betrayed you years ago, you start with that person maybe you work with that just sort of bugs you. That might be a little bit easier than going all the way to, or even if you can't start at the moment with our president, you might start, by wishing our representatives well, or something like that. So lifting weights, a little bit of a stretch, but nothing too hard. And then, so we begin practicing metta very slowly, starting with ourselves, and then we go to something we consider beloved, like a mentor, a child, or a pet. And then when we're ready, we work up to more difficult people that we're wishing goodwill, wishing friendliness upon. And with that practice, you can feel your heart sort of opening up. You can feel some relief, I think, sometimes, because there's sometimes an element of forgiveness in it, and that can be really nice. So Tess is going to tell us about an exercise we're going to do together.
I spent a year on metta just around my father, so extremely difficult person. Okay, so we're going to invite you to create loving kindness wishes cards that we'll share with each other later in the service, so as you're comfortable. So in a moment, I'll invite you to come on up and gather the materials. You'll grab a may you card and a pen, and then we'll take a few minutes and we'll think about a loving kindness wish that you'd like to share with someone else and write it on the card. And you can kind of think of it as sending someone a Valentine. And then once you're done, come on up and just pop it back into that pink bag. And if a few folks don't mind, if they could take, I made so many. A few folks, if you don't mind taking a few, I would be really grateful just to make sure that at the end everybody gets one. And then for those on Zoom, I invite you to write your loving kindness wish in the chat. And then you can browse back through the chat. And if any speak to you, you can download the whole chat just by clicking the 3 dots in the area where you type something new. There's 3 dots right there. And it says type message here and then 3 dots. And you just download that and it'll go to your downloads file on your computer. And that's where you can find it. All right, so great. And so I just want to give you a quick example. So may you cherish yourself. That could be one. May you be at peace. May you be gifted with love and laughter. So anyone who wants to participate, please come on up, grab a card, grab a pen, and we'll have a few minutes of a little music while we contemplate that, while we write those out. Thank you so much. I wrote a ton. Just want to make sure everybody got one.
Yeah, it looks like most people are lining up together.
That's
So.
good. I won't pad the bag. I'll notice kind of how many. It looks like some people. All right, that was cool. That was really fun. Okay, I invite you to join me in expressing our UU affirmation. We are Unitarian Universalists, people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. Thank you. As part of our commitment to practice our UU shared values, we offer half of our Share the Plate offerings with local organizations whose work embodies these values. This month, our Share the Plate partner is the Tongva Tarahat Pahava Conservancy. Worked hard on that, hope I did it some justice. Beautiful words. TTPC is an indigenous urban land trust organization working to rematriate the first plot of land returned to the original inhabitants of Los Angeles. 2 years ago, the 1-acre property in suburban Altadena, then owned by Sharon Alexander's family since 1931, was transferred by Alexander to the Tongva people after learning of its ancestral significance. The TTPC has worked to restore the land in accordance with traditional ecological knowledge, as well as provide tribal community members a space for community gatherings and ceremonies. Their efforts to reestablish the native plant biodiversity lessened the already significant impact of the Eaton Canyon fire on the property. The TTPC's indigenous-led land stewardship teaches significant and valuable approaches to resilience against climate change. We thank you for your support of this incredible organization. You may contribute today or see the online donation information printed on the order of service, or donate at emersonuuc.org. If you're writing a check today, please memo the check with Share the Plate, or if you're making your pledge, just write pledge in the memo. With immense gratitude, we now invite our wonderful ushers to receive your generosity. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Thank you, everybody, for your generosity. As the election grew near, and through this treacherous first month of this regime, I've become more and more anxious. The word that has rumbled forth to classify my anxiousness is despair. Like many folks, I've found myself on a roller coaster of hopelessness and rage and blame. I've wanted to divide and lash out. This makes sense when we are in active engagement with our humanity and witness and experience injustice and cruelty. Despair, like many emotions labeled as quote unquote dark, can be frightening and uncomfortable. But the work of love means confronting things like the reductive binary of dark equaling bad and light equaling good. In his book, The New Saints, From Broken Hearts to Spiritual Warriors, Buddhist Lama Rod Owens offers a welcome perspective when he writes about learning to speak to the darkness. In this practice, he continues, the darkness is made real for us, snatched from the hypothetical or from being labeled evil and unworkable. As he says, darkness can be an expression of a different kind of clarity. As Lama Owens points out, light and dark are necessary and equal teachers, rather than necessarily opposing forces. Despair informed me it was time to invest in it as a tool of regeneration. And along with the writings of Lama Owens, I have returned to guidance to one of my other go-to Buddhist teachers, Pema Chodron. You've heard me quote her so much. During Donald Trump's first term, Pema Chodron's book, Welcoming the Unwelcome, Wholehearted Living in a Broken-Hearted World, was published. As Pema writes, the time we live in is fertile ground for training in being open-minded and open-hearted. If we can learn to hold this falling apartness without polarizing, then whatever we do today will have a positive effect on the future. As we individuals grow in our resilience, as we become better at staying conscious and not losing heart, we will be able to remain strong in challenging conditions for the long haul. Okay, cool, Pema and Lama Rod Owens. In consideration of the current accelerated tyranny, my question is, how do we hold equal space for despair and wholeheartedness, especially for the long haul? Located in their respective Buddhist traditions, Lama Owens encourages a reunion with and working from the sacred balance of dark and light. On that same page, Pema offers the Buddhist practice of Tonglen as the way to map the journey. It's a sort of another practice that's an extension of metta-loving kindness, and in this place, you're looking at suffering directly. So Tonglen practice is a method of connecting with suffering, our own and that which is all around us, as she explains. It is a method of awakening the compassion that is inherent in all of us, she advises, no matter how cruel or cold we, as individuals and the greater world, seem to be. To be clear, Tonglen is not a practice of condoning or submitting to cruel and unjust behavior. Tonglen practice is not a way to ignore it. In fact, while it is a deeply layered meditation practice, at its core is a form of resistance that Buddhists call bodhicitta. It's a Sanskrit term meaning awakened heart and mind. Bodhicitta is the motivation to deeply investigate, thoroughly understand, and compassionately work with the particulars and pain of our own suffering. And importantly, to observe how our suffering may unconsciously inform our views and behaviors toward ourselves and others. In tandem with metta-loving kindness practice, Tonglen also coaches us to move gently outward toward others, eventually landing at the motivation to gain insight as to the suffering of those who challenge us the most. Scary stuff. Investigating and holding space for our suffering and pain, and then, moving out from those we identify those, and then all the way to these challenging folks. This is what Pema and Lama Owens advise. We begin at the locus of suffering. For me, in this case, despair, as the pathway that locates love at the center. Confronted with despair and anger, Tonglen practice helps me to engage with these so-called darker emotions, to become aware of when and what ushered me into a state of despair and anger, to make friends with them, to see them as equal partners in my growth. When I bring these states into focus, into wholehearted awareness, I allow compassionate investigation into what is happening to my well-being, my present moment awareness, my ability to act in accordance with my values. As Lama Owens suggests, when we mindfully and lovingly tend to the experiences like despair and anger, we emerge with greater insight, with the precision to impactfully respond. Tonglen practice then asks us to extend this engagement of our suffering to an engagement with the suffering of all others. Key word, all. Thought about this a lot. What about those people perpetrating actions, beliefs, and policies we completely and utterly oppose? Those we label evil, Lama Owens writes, are people that have lost agency with the darkness, and now the darkness has agency over them. They have lost contact with that sacred balance of dark and light, and are reacting to the fear that comes with such a loss. They've collapsed into selfishness and struggle to empathize with others. Lama Owens' brilliant choice of the term agency models the compassionate and insightful examination of Tonglen practice. Lama Owens is calling out the suffering behind the hellish loss of ourselves when greed, aggression, dominance, and cruelty are swapped for one's humanity. They're buried for the pursuit of love, justice, and equity. Descending into the depths of might be mislabeled as darkness is actually a good move. Lama Owens asserts aligning ourselves with freedom is the work of figuring out who we are through the rage and the brokenheartedness. In this way, Tonglen practice is a practice of love at the center. Along with meta loving kindness, it's rather than a passive slogan. These are not passive slogans. They are an active assertion of Dr. King's call to love in action. It is a practice, a work on behalf of progress. To hold, tend to, and repair our suffering and that of others is to emerge empowered and to keep emerging empowered, which is very important. It is about keeping the heart toned for the work of love, liberation, and transformation. In the word of Lama Rod Owens, may we all be wholehearted warriors in the pursuit of love, and I'll add love at the center. I'm going to come down, and Stephanie's going to help me with this. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I now invite you to accept a loving kindness wish. And for those on the Zoom sanctuary, remember, browse back through the chat and download whatever you would like of those loving kindness wishes. I'm giving up the Valentine. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your worship associate today.
I'm now going to read from the Book of Life, which is the joys and sorrows, celebrations, and memories that are shared by this community. Anonymous writes, thoughts and prayers for my father, my mother, and myself. We are all enduring health challenges. While each of us have differing issues, we are all hurting. And that's what's in our book of life here this morning. I'm going to read what we have online. Susan Siskin writes, I need to do something. Please join us at the Tesla Supercharger Station, 9000 Tampa Ave Northridge, with creative signs and energy for Not My President's Day rally from 10 o'clock to noon. And I think that's on Monday. And Janet writes she's happy, or writes that her son and his girlfriend are visiting this weekend. So blessings on that. I'm going to ring our bell now, and you're invited to speak the names of anyone who's on your heart out loud into the sanctuary as a kind of prayer. I invite you to get comfortable and to take a few deep breaths with me. We're going to breathe in and out, and again in and out, and in and out. Let us start with a moment of silence. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, what some call God or Goddess or the holy or even the universe. We come to you today with many wishes, wishes of goodwill, wishes for an end to suffering, wishes for new life. Spirit, we send wishes of an end to suffering to those who are hurting, whether it's parents or friends or children or even ourselves. Whether this hurting comes from illness or the world or something deep inside of us breaking, whatever it is, Spirit, we send wishes for an end to suffering. God, Goddess, we also send wishes for an end to the suffering of anxiety. For those of us who are worried about our world, who are worried about our trans children, who are worried about our friends or our neighbors, that we may find love and peace an end to that suffering, a place of rest, even in resistance. Spirit that moves throughout the universe, we also send these wishes for those who have joy. We send wishes of joy and love and peace. To those who are feeling it already, whether it's excitement of achievements that our children have had, or excitement about new pets or new babies in our life. But also to those who are having trouble accessing joy right now. Sometimes it's hard to access that joy, especially if the anxiety or the despair feels overwhelming. Spirit of the universe, Spirit of God, of the goddess, may there be an end to suffering, an end to despair, an end to anxiety. May there be joy, may there be peace, and may there be love to be found. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to sing with me number 1031. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
That was a great choice.
You may be seated if you're standing. For these centering hymns, sometimes I like to sit, sometimes I like to stand. It sort of feels meditative, I guess. I would like to, so we've been doing a sermon series on the 6 new values that are centered around love. And this sermon series came because this last year at the Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly, we voted on these new values, so we've been exploring them. And today we jumped ahead a little bit. We still had equity left, but we jumped ahead a little bit to love just because it's Valentine's Day in February. So I open with a reading called Being Universalist is Like by Julian Hameka Soda. They write, Part 1. Being universalist is like a person who went on a long journey. People think it's a great movement of emotion that causes the idea that God would never abandon their own nature. but it is just as much a finely wrote work of mathematics. Stay with me. It's a long journey, they write. Part 2. Here's the thing. Of all the 7.93 billion people in the world, it seems unlikely, bordering on impossible, that you play this note tenderly as a sibling on a kazoo, are the only imperfect one. I think God knows, or at least suspects, that our hearts are that tough, but also that tender. And sometimes they heal up like superglue on ceramic, definitely back together, chipped, glue showing, crooked and ready to be used. It seems implausible that not only are the rest of us stardust, and you are not made of less, but the rest of us are in development. Egg to tadpole to frog, crumb to sponge to bread, mote of dust to expanding star. Part 3. Being universalist is also this, that not disposing of people means that we see them. What materials do they use to make amends? An apology of words, an atonement of actions, take their second chance and maybe a third and even more, because if humans live 70 years, that's 70, that leads me to believe that you may have made more than a single mistake. When I apologize for this, it is with the calm understanding that this is one of the hardest parts of being human. If I laugh, it's only recognition and sympathy, supposing that in your complicated quantum meets state. Part 4. You will encounter a kaleidoscope, a ball pit of the ridiculous and the absurd, as a secretary bird or a flashlight fish, but also dizzying heights of compassion and the humbling pockets turned out, palms up, clear-eyed, non-defensive mudra of ultimate despair. In the end, all will be well. You are beloved and you belong here, in this place now, in this time, imperfect and longing forevermore. Being universalist is like a person who went on a long journey in the name of the future, her children, and all we may yet imagine. This sermon was born out of an assumption. A couple of times now, probably more than a couple of times, I've been asked by well-meaning individuals, what do you do for work? Sometimes in the case of airplanes, I end the conversation with, I work in a church. I'll admit, I occasionally want to avoid the chatty airplane seatmate and instead zone out on my noise-canceling headphones so I can hear as little of the plane as possible. Usually, though, I respond, I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister. And more than a few times, I've gotten a thoughtful look and response, oh, universalism, like universal beliefs. I can get behind that. Occasionally, especially if the moment isn't right, I let that statement stand. But I usually respond with a, well, actually. If you know your Unitarian Universalist history, you may be able to fill in that, well, actually. Well, actually, universalism refers to the idea of universal salvation. Well, actually, Universalism was a prominent Christian denomination in the 1800s and 1900s. A bit of a history refresher here for us. Universalism was, and for some people still is, a Christian denomination that originated in the United States after the Revolutionary War. It was first known as the Universalist General Convention and became later the Universalist Church of America. While Universalists were varied in their theology, they primarily believed that God is love and loving, and as a result would not condemn people to eternal damnation. A short story helps illustrate this, and this is told by Linda Stowell. One of the founders of Universalism, Hosea Ballou, was riding the circuit again when he stopped for the night at a New England farmhouse. The farmer was upset. He confided to Ballou that his son was a terror who drank in the village every night and who fooled around with women. The farmer was afraid the son would go to hell. All right, said Ballou with a serious face. We'll find a place on the path where your son will be coming home drunk, and we'll build a big fire, and when he comes home, we'll grab him and throw him into it." The farmer was shocked. "That's my son. I love him." Baloo said, "If you, a human and imperfect father, love your son so much that you wouldn't throw him into the fire, then how can you possibly believe that God, the perfect father, as the Universalists said at that time, would do so?" Universalists differ in how they think this universal salvation thing happens. Some believe that there's a purgatory-style period before a person goes to heaven, that people do receive punishment or perhaps some kind of cleansing, though this isn't for eternity. These folks are sometimes called restorationists, believing that all humans can be restored to goodness. Some believe instead what's called ultra-universalism, and I kind of like that word, ultra-universalism. The idea is that everyone goes to heaven immediately after death, perhaps leaving their sins behind on earth with your body. As you can imagine, this was and still is a fiery debate in some circles. What is cleansing or counting? How does it happen? Is it necessary? The Unitarian Universalist denomination was a scrappy one. While our Unitarian forebears were content in the halls of privilege, sometimes called Boston Brahmins or the Unitarians, they didn't have time for the things like the revivals that overtook America in the early 1800s during the Second Great Awakening. Universalists, though, were right there with the Methodists and the Mormons, spreading their unique message of universal salvation. In fact, they were so successful that Universalism was the sixth largest denomination in the United States in the late 19th century. Pictures of their revivals show them sitting around with banners that proclaim God is love. And in fact, this was one of the radical proclamations of Unitarians. God is Universalist, I'm going to make that mistake, aren't I? That was one of the radical proclamations of Universalists. God is love. They believed that God is not a God of condemnation and perfection, that God is not a God of expectation and punishment, but instead God is love. They oftentimes, like in the story of Hosea Baloo, compared God with the perfect parent, forgiving and welcoming of all of humanity with open arms. At this time, this was a Christian message. Before the merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists, which is how we got the U and the U, both denominations were considered at least nominally Christian. For Universalists, this meant that God was loving as expressed through the Jesus stories in the Bible. And for some, they believed that Jesus was sent by God to create the perfect union or joining of God and humanity, giving Jesus a purpose just beyond a good message. For others, they expressed an almost deist belief in God separate from Jesus. As I refreshed myself on this history, I couldn't help but wonder how this feel-good Christianity got to the point of merger to become what we know today as Unitarian Universalism, a denomination united by values and that welcomes spiritual beliefs of all kinds. After Universalism had its heyday in the late 19th century, the denomination began to shrink as other Christian denominations preached hellfire and damnation less and less. In a way, the radical proclamation that everyone would be saved became a less radical proclamation. Universalists in the early 20th century recognized this crisis. Along with this recognition, Universalists also accepted more radical preachers, perhaps because of their unorganized nature, their scrappy nature, as I said. One of those radical preachers was Clinton Lee Scott, a Universalist minister who even served out here in LA at the First Universalist Church of Los Angeles. As a side note, that church was located for almost 50 years in Pico Union on the corners of Alvaro and Hoover Streets, if anybody can locate that. The building is now a Spanish-speaking Seventh-day Adventist church. Clinton Lee Scott, during his time, made the transition from Christian Universalist to Christian Humanist to Global Humanist. And he, in fact, signed the first and second iterations of the Humanist Manifesto, which I think is something we should be proud of. And Scott was never kicked out of the church, stayed in the pulpit until he was too deaf to engage in discussions into his 80s. There was also another group that I liked that emerged in the 1900s, and they called themselves the Humiliati. The Humiliati, yes, the Humiliati. And it was a small group of Universalist ministers, all men, of course, who picked the name because it meant the humble ones. The humble ones. However, folks tend to say that they weren't really very humble. The name came from an older, now defunct Italian Catholic religious order. The Humiliati was concerned with the future of universalism and pushed for revitalization, and some of their ideas were practical. They aimed to free their worship services from stale intellectualism and to enrich it with liturgical forms, investments, and symbols, which I think we've done a little bit of. Their theology was based on a member, Albert Ziegler, who called it emergent universalism, which aspired for a framework that was functional, naturalistic, theistic, and humanistic. It went for the higher development of world religion. Their choice of name notwithstanding, you might see how some of these ideas have translated into our UU faith today. They wanted more openness, more incorporation of world religions, and so we got a lot of that in our services today. And they were already making strides towards a more open, less Christian-centric version of universalism in those late 1940s, that era. Christian universalism, though, still exists today. In fact, there's an entire movement of Christian ministers who identify as very much Christians and very much universalists, still holding on to the theology our ancestral denomination preached in the 1800s. Personally, as a religion geek, I've enjoyed exploring the stories of these often evangelical or mainstream preachers who've moved from exclusionary beliefs to an almost ultra-inclusionary belief found in our universalist heritage. And one that I sometimes read and follow is the Reverend Rob Bell, who went from being this very sort of prominent evangelical preacher to being a very open universalist. As I went through seminary and am now serving as a minister, it's been interesting to talk to people and find that many actually identify more with our universalist heritage. Rather than the intellectualism and affluence of Unitarianism, I hear folks say more and more that they love the universalist part of it. Perhaps thinking of the revivals that proclaimed love is God, or the scrappiness of circuit riders spreading universalism to the far corners of our country, to the idea that no one is more special or worthy than anyone else. We are, though, sitting in a UU church, and the universalism of our people tends to not center on Christianity or Jesus. We may embrace other belief systems and find values in multiple places, like our new 6 values with love at the center. Our theology tends to center values rather than strict beliefs, as I said. Julian Jamaica Soto says that universalists believe that we are all imperfect, that we are all indisposable, that we are all beloved, whether it is before God or before each other. This is the kind of universalism that believes in love, perhaps even centers love, and sees the fundamental importance of everyone. Like I said, I've been preaching on our shared values. And at the center of that, at the center of that is love, and that's surrounded by values like interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity. All centered on that belief in love. In a way, we can't do those other things without love. We can't do interdependence, we can't do pluralism, etc., without love. The value of love reads, "Love is the power that holds us together and is the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. It feels like we are embracing our Universalist heritage by saying, actually, at the center of our faith is love. In fact, when they were deciding on our new shared values, they talked about how Unitarian Universalists, more than any other group, named love as their primary value, as their number one value. Love is in our blood historically, but also just in what our folks are telling us. Universalism is also a theology of abundance, the abundance of salvation and the abundance of love. Some Universalists believe that the only hell was the one we find right here, living on earth. And our job was not to worry about heaven, because that was already assured, but to concentrate instead on fixing the hell found here, or transforming the hell-like structures and inequalities into heaven on earth. Universalism even motivates us to use love in our fight for our values of equity, justice, and interdependence, to name a few. Perhaps that's what Universalism has for us today, a centering of love and the worthiness of all earthly beings, and the idea that the only hell we need to work on, that we need to worry about at least, is the suffering or the hell here on earth. We are so interconnected. Love is so abundant, and our calling is to fix our world. The t-shirt reads, "Love the hell out of the world." I love this idea. Can we love and work so hard that hell ceases to exist both here and in the afterlife? That we can create heaven on earth? Can we love the hell out of the world? I sure hope so. This is needed now more than ever, to love the hell out of the world. May it be so. Amen. You're invited to stand for our last hymn, number 1008, which is in your teal hymnal, "When Our Heart is in a Holy Place." When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we seize the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and craft, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when we taste of love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when we tell to get close to each other. You can touch elbows or grab hands. You can even give yourself a hug if that feels good, whatever is comfortable. So for our benediction, I'm going to read a couple of our may yous as a blessing.
And there's more if anyone
And
wants
there's many, many more if anybody didn't get one or would like to take an extra home. May you be free and joyful. May you be at peace and in good health. May you be blessed with many animal friends. And may you find a loving place in this world. Beloveds, let us love the hell out of this world. May it be so. Amen.
blessings